This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
So let's get into the early life of Nicholas Lee Wiley. Nicholas Lee Wiley was born on July 17th, 1962 in Apopka, Florida. He moved with his family to Syracuse, New York sometime during his childhood. His mother, Ruby, was a self-employed daycare provider.
Nicholas had two brothers and a sister who died in 1966. His mother also took in foster children and eventually adopted two girls. We don't know much at all about the family, his early life, his brothers and sisters, or anything. But according to a neighbor, his mother, Ruby, talked about all of her children, but not Nicholas.
What?
And then Ruby died in 2002 at the age of 54, really young.
Yeah. Not uncommon, though, for Black people, as we've talked about, the weathering of our bodies and minds due to systems of oppression. Anyway, Let's get into the timeline. In January of 1979, when he was just 16, Wiley sexually assaulted a 25-year-old woman in his apartment and then stabbed her in the chest.
He was just 16.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
He was convicted of this crime and spent 4 years in prison. He was released in 1983 at the age of 20.
That same year, he was charged with entering a home on Niagara Street and beating a 66-year-old woman in the head with a claw hammer.
Oh my!
He cut her telephone line and got away with $60 and $6 in food stamps.
For that crime, he was convicted of first-degree burglary. But after an appeals court ruled that he had ineffective counsel, his sentence was overturned and his jail time reduced. After spending 7 years in prison, Wiley was released in June of 1991.
The next month, just the very next month, on July 17th, his 29th birthday, Wiley beat and sexually assaulted a 16-year-old girl. He tied her hands behind her back and told her that her purpose was to please men. He later told a parole officer that he had seriously considered killing the girl.
He told the parole officer that? What an idiot. This guy is not good anyway, but
no.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he was convicted of first-degree sodomy and sentenced to the maximum penalty, 12 to 25 years in prison. But because of a legal technicality, his conviction was again overturned on appeal, and Wiley was convicted on a lesser charge and sentenced to 6 to 12 years in prison.
According to prison records, officials filed 15 disciplinary reports on Wiley for creating disturbances, harassing others, having contraband, and refusing orders. He also refused to participate in the prison's sex offender treatment program. All of this counted against him, and he served the full 12 years. So if you get out of prison early, like if he had, his sentence was 6 to 12 years, if he had gotten out of prison after 6 years, he would have been on parole. But since he served the full 12 years, he was not on parole.
Thank you for that clarification, OG of True Crime. Did it again.
just learned that on this story. Just learned it.
Aha. Serve the full time, doesn't need to be on any supervision, right?
Right. Which I don't know if I agree with that, but
not a lot of good choices on numerous fronts here.
Yeah.
The system as well as Wiley. So on January 22nd, 2004, Wiley was released from Auburn Correctional Facility, and he had to register as a level 3 sex offender. A level 3 sex offender is considered by law enforcement to be the highest risk to commit the crime again. He'd been in prison almost all of his adult life.
Yeah, he went into prison when he was 16, and every time he got out, he got in trouble again, like almost immediately.
Right away, yeah.
Yeah. But he had served his full time, so as I said, he was not on parole. He did not have to meet with a parole officer, was not under any supervision, and did not have to abide by any special conditions. The only thing Wiley was required to do was report to the police every 90 days, which he did.
He moved into the Elaine Apartments on West Onondaga Street in Syracuse near a relative. The Elaine was a few blocks from a city mission, and people drifted from one place to another. They might live at the mission for a while and then find better housing at the Elaine, while still using the mission's counseling services.
There was no lease to negotiate for an apartment. A conversation with the manager was all that was required, and that is how Wiley came to live there in March. A former mission resident, he wandered in and asked if anything was available.
According to the landlord, Wiley was quiet and stayed to himself. He was always looking for work, so the landlord gave him odd jobs to do, but some of the residents found him to be creepy.
One neighbor claimed that he tied up a teenage girl because she owed him money. Another said that he had peeked into her apartment. Others said he was weird, or they just got weird vibes.
On April 19th, 2004, 18-year-old Tammy Sue Lynn Passaneau went missing. The last person to speak to her was a social worker on April 16th who arranged for her to see a doctor on the 19th. She never showed up for that doctor's appointment.
On April 22nd, someone called Syracuse Waste Management and requested a courtesy pickup of garbage in the trash bin where Wiley lived. No such request had ever been made before at that particular location.
Come again? At the time of her disappearance, Tammy lived on Bellevue Avenue, but she had some mental health issues and changed residences frequently. She would sometimes drop out of sight for a few days, but never for very long.
Tammy was the mother of a son who was an infant at the time of her disappearance. He was in foster care when she went missing. Because she sometimes dropped off the radar, her family did not report her missing until May 24th.
So they hadn't seen her for about a month. And Tammy's family felt that she would never go that long without contacting them. She had also not cashed any of her benefit checks since she was last heard from, and she had not refilled any of her prescriptions. She had also not been seen at Syracuse University Hospital since then.
And prior to her disappearance, she came to the pediatric emergency room at the hospital at least twice a month, seeking help for herself or sometimes simply asking for food. Remember, she had mental health issues, so she required a lot of visits to the hospital.
Assistance, yeah. And care.
She visited the emergency room 30 times in 2003, but none of the staff there had seen her since her disappearance.
The truth about the Haditha massacre has been covered up, but not anymore.
I know you know what happened.
They went into houses and killed women and children.
What are you thinking?
What a mess.
U.S. Marines murdered innocent civilians in cold blood.
And at the center of it all
is 25-year-old Sergeant Frank Wuderick.
And me. Murder in House 2. A new podcast from Crowd Network.
From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
On May 26th or 27th, a witness saw Wiley chasing a woman outside the apartment complex. The woman is thought to have been Lottie Thompson, a 31-year-old Black woman who lived in the apartment right next door to Wiley.
Lottie was a mother of 3 who sold cosmetics to supplement her disability income. She was a high school graduate and a communicant of her church. Lottie was last heard from on May 26th.
Towards the end of May, the apartment manager, Junelle Starling, received complaints of an odor coming from Lottie's apartment. Wiley was one of the people reporting the odor, and he asked that her apartment be searched. So that's sick.
Yeah. On May 31st, Wiley joined Miss Starling when she entered Lottie's apartment. On the bed was a small pile of clothes, which Wiley directed Miss Starling's attention to. Quote, he said, "Look." He was holding a foot up. He was calm, even in my hysteria. He just stood there, unquote. And Lottie's body was underneath the pile of clothes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I missed that detail in my research of the story. That was a surprise. Wow. Okay, so Lottie had been stabbed multiple times. Investigators said she had been dead for several days. Police began their investigation in her apartment and then worked their way outdoors. The next day, June 1st, the police searched the building's trash bin for evidence.
The garbage bin had not been emptied for weeks because it was blocked by an abandoned car. Inside the container, they found the body of Hannah Finnerty, 22. Hannah had lived in an apartment on the same street, but a few blocks away. She had last been seen around May 20th.
4 years earlier, Hannah had a bright future. She had graduated 6th in her class from a high school in Waterton, about 70 miles north of Syracuse. She excelled in sports and academics, and she earned a scholarship to an engineering college.
But 2 years after graduation, Hannah had slipped into heroin use and had dropped out of college. In 2002, she was arrested for drug possession, and in 2003, she went into a treatment program. But shortly before her death, she'd been arrested again.
Hannah was known for her friendly and outgoing personality, and she had a close-knit group of friends and family who cared deeply for her. She was 5 months pregnant when she died.
Both women had been bound, their throats slit, and both had suffered multiple stab wounds.
So now let's get into the investigation and the arrest. So after investigators learned that Wiley was a level 3 sex offender, living in the same building as Lottie Thompson,
right next door,
he was taken in for questioning. After hours of interrogation, Wiley confessed to the murders of Lottie and Hannah.
He actually claimed to have killed a total of 7 people between April and May. Wiley said he had killed a teenage boy who was harassing him, a couple who used drugs with him, and a man who he says argued with him near the mission, and whom he says he threw into a river.
I was just thinking, how there's like in cartoons like a evil meter? It just seems like Wiley is just
He's
any
pushing
opportunity
the edge of that,
he can. He wants it to go off the
evil.
Richter scale. Yeah. So he told the police that all the killings occurred within a few blocks of the mission during the spring. And he told them about different trash bins where he said he had placed the bodies, the contents of which went into incinerators. However, his claims of most of the other murders could not be corroborated.
He told police that one of his victims was, quote, a red-haired girl named Tammy, unquote. And Tammy Passano was the only missing person in the Syracuse area who fit that description.
Wiley told police that he killed Tammy in the same way that he killed Lottie and Hannah, by tying her up and cutting her throat. Wiley said that when he went for the women's throats, he was like a pit bull or a ninja.
Okay.
Yeah. Just the gross evil meter just
going
crank,
up. Yeah.
Crank.
Well, here comes more.
Okay.
He said that when you go for the arteries in the throat, quote, there's no other sound like it, like air coming out of a balloon, unquote.
Bone-chilling comment.
Yeah.
Wiley claimed that he killed all 3 victims in a fit of anger. He told police he killed Lottie while they were having sex, Hannah after she haggled with him for crack cocaine, and Tammy after an argument about sexual predators and prisons.
He told police that he had been, quote, out of control for a while, unquote, and had problems dealing with his anger, which he couldn't control.
You don't say.
Yeah. Surprising.
Yeah.
He said that being institutionalized most of his life caused him to go into rages.
Yeah, that tracks. But he claimed that he knew he needed help and wouldn't stop until he got caught. So leaving Lottie in her apartment was his call for help.
I feel like you could have done something different, like actually call
Right?
for help.
Yeah, right? I mean, he's at this mission place, which is my understanding from the description is that it's after people are in a more down and out position. They come up to this place, but still have access to the services if they need help, like counseling or housing placement or help getting to doctor's
Right.
appointments
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
There were people there who could help him.
it was
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. So a joint effort was launched between the Criminal Investigation Division and the Missing Persons Division. Investigators searched through local landfills for the bodies of his other alleged victims, but they found nothing.
They also looked through all the missing persons cases that they had in Syracuse, and none of the reports matched Wiley's descriptions of the other people he said he had killed. Wiley later claimed that his statements to the police were involuntary. Oh, were they now? And that his interview amounted to psychological coercion.
I feel like he made up these other people to make it seem like, I lied about these, so of course I lied about the other ones too, just to confuse people.
Just to confuse people. Yeah, I mean, he seems impulsive to me in that way. Like, I'm never let him know your next move. That's Wiley.
Yeah. Police did not find Tammy's body, and authorities believe Wiley disposed of it in a trash bin, and it was hauled away to the county trash burning plant. Remember how that one bin, there was a request for a courtesy
Pickup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he probably called them to get rid of the body.
Yeah, to do the work for him.
Right.
Lazy rip.
However, investigators did search his apartment for evidence of her murder. And there, they found a box cutter with blood on it. And they sent it for DNA testing. And the blood on the box cutter was later matched to Tammy's DNA.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
Many people living in his neighborhood were furious that they had not been notified that a level 3 sex offender was living in the area.
Yeah.
At the time, it was up to law enforcement agencies to decide whether or not it was necessary to inform neighbors about an offender. Protect and serve,
Yeah.
So now let's get into the trial. So Wiley entered a plea of not guilty. And during his trial, Wiley's defense tried to convince the jury that Wiley was mentally ill and had been coerced into confessing. Wiley claimed that the police promised him that the prosecution would not seek the death penalty if he came clean. So he confessed in order to avoid execution.
But Wiley was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder by a jury comprised of 6 men and 6 women. He was sentenced by County Judge Joseph Fahey in October 2006 to life in prison without the possibility of parole for killing Tammy Passano, Hannah Finnerty, and Lottie Thompson.
In sentencing Wiley for the murders, Judge Fahey told him, quote, "You're one of those creatures that occasionally slips through the gates of hell and walks among us, causing death, pain, and destruction," unquote. If we could fit that into an episode title, that's what.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
On appeal in 2009, the State Supreme Court Appellate Division in Rochester rejected Wiley's contention that his confession was the result of psychological coercion by police. They also found that there was sufficient evidence to support the conclusion that Wiley committed the 3 murders in a similar fashion, and the court rejected his appeal. So at least this time, they rejected his appeal, because I think on 2 of the other crimes that he committed...
his appeals were successful.
Yeah.
So now let's get into where are they now? Well, Wiley is currently serving his time at Great Meadow Correctional Facility in Comstock, New York.
Tammy's remains were never found. All that has ever been found is the blood in Wiley's apartment.
All right, that's it for the story. We're going to get into what we think of the case and our takes. What do you think of this case, Beth?
Well, I'm disappointed that we didn't get enough information about his early life to give us really any idea of what happened to him, why he did what he did.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Could have been a brain trauma, shitty childhood. I mean, he had brothers and sisters that did not get into trouble as far as we know.
Right.
So it's hard to say what happened to him.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, I understand that Syracuse is pretty racist, so...
Yeah.
That could have been a factor. Also, when he mentioned being institutionalized most of his life, I mean, he killed somebody. Did he kill the woman? No, he raped somebody. The first crime when he was 16.
Yeah. I think
he stabbed her.
Okay.
He stabbed her in the chest.
Okay.
But it doesn't say that he murdered her. When he was just 16, he sexually assaulted and stabbed a woman in the chest. So obviously, there was something wrong with him from the beginning.
Yeah.
But he was also institutionalized like his entire life. So that probably
couldn't
have
helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's really hard to say why he turned out like he did. But he clearly was never going to stop.
Right.
And it's tragic how much this disaster of a man affected the lives around him of those he victimized and their families.
Right.
And friends.
Yeah. Just to your point, like I'm thinking about the families, and Tammy's body was never found, like
right.
I just...
How awful that would be.
Yeah, for her loved ones.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the fact that his mom had all these kids, including a daughter who died, took in foster kids, but never mentioned Nicholas?
Yeah.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Coupled with what the judge said to him at his sentencing about someone who walked out of the gates of HE double hockey sticks.
Yeah.
And for a young person whose brain isn't fully formed, just like Beth said, to be so violent and vicious and have literally no regard for other humans, period, is so disturbing and terrifying. And yeah, he was institutionalized for a long time. And we talk about this a lot. They don't get any help in prison, but he was offered that sex offender treatment program and he declined it,
refused,
which was a very,
to do it.
Poor choice. I don't know what that means, but it just sounds like somebody who lacks empathy and remorse.
Probably didn't think there was anything wrong with him.
Yeah, exactly. He did not think there was anything wrong with the things that he did, but he knew his deeds were punishable.
Right.
And that's why I'm wrestling with this, him wanting to turn up the dial on the horror and callousness of and awfulness, but also not caring about that he did it, just that he would get in trouble for it.
Yeah, exactly.
He pleaded not guilty and then tried to claim that he was coerced, which is laughable.
Right.
And I just want us to remember Lottie Thompson, Hannah Finnerty, and Tammy Passano. The victims were each somebody's child who had value. They had people that loved them in their lives and did not deserve what happened to them. So again, rest in paradise to those queens.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media.
This is a weekly podcast, and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.
Hello, this is Gary Chahot welcoming you to check out the French History Podcast. Our main show covers the history of France from the first humans until present. If you liked Mike Duncan's The History of Rome and wanted a similar program covering the land of beauty, culture, and love, we are exactly that. We also host world-renowned scholars who have delivered guest episodes on their specialties, including 18th century pirates, revolutionary booksellers in 20th century Paris, the special friendship between the Marquis de Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, and numerous others. Learn what you love and listen to the French History Podcast today.
I'm an American vigilante. I have a question for you. What would you do if someone you cared about was abducted, taken from you? Would you call me? Would you care about how I got them back? Download American Vigilante now.